8, okay, please.
The child grew and was weaned, and on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast.
Absolutely. And they still do that today, just so you know, in the Korean culture. If they make it to their first year, there's a giant celebration. That Korean church I was at, whenever somebody had a child and it lived that first year, and that goes back to the fact that in Korea, just up until recently, I mean literally within the past 20 or so years, it was very poor. I was there in the 80s, and I got to tell you, that most places didn't have bathrooms in the houses. They had, well, I won't even give the term, but they had these certain things they did, and then they went and dumped them out in the river, and, you know, they called them honey buckets. But, you know, that's just the way they've lived. And people died quite often at young ages, and that's up to modern times almost in Korea. And so it's the same thing here. Poor cultures around the earth really cherish that first year of life. If it makes it this far, it's probably going to last, and that's what's going on here as well. So, okay.
But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking. And she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that slave woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac."
Okay, now, real quickly here, well, I don't have the King James Version, and so I don't know what the word is, but it says here in my Bible that where it says he was mocking, or in my Bible it says scoffing, it was laughing. And so it's probably the same word as Isaac. In other words, it's a pun on what Ishmael is doing to Isaac. All right, a pun on his name. So you have the laughter there, but you also have laughter in a mocking sense. Yeah. So you know, if I had the King James Version, I would look up that particular word, but it may not be scoffing, and I'd waste your time. So anyway, but that's what it says here, is that he was laughing at him literally in the Hebrew. So there you go. And then go ahead, wherever you were at.
The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son.
Hey, hang on a sec. Did you read 10? He was scoffing. 10.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He did. Okay, well, let's go through 10 real quickly. Therefore, she said to Abraham, "Cast out this bondwoman," okay, "and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be the heir with my son, namely with Isaac." What an important verse this is for the future and a picture of the church. And we want to go to Galatians. And we're going to read this real quickly. This is God is using this to make a spiritual application later. And this is in Galatians 3, and he quotes this. Let's see here. Cursed is everyone. It's 30. Is it? What'd you say?
My little note says 30. Galatians 4:30.
Okay. Well, we'll go there. I'm in 3, and maybe it is 4. Let's go here. 4:30. Okay, is it there, 4:30? Yes, okay, so here we go. We're going to start back a little bit to keep it in context. We'll start with 21. "Tell me, you who desire to be under the law, do you not hear," and I just read Galatians just in the past couple days, you know, my regular reading. "Tell me, you who, it's probably my favorite New Testament book." I don't want to say that dogmatically because I do like the whole New Testament, and parts of Colossians I think are unbelievable, but as a whole book, I really like Galatians. And it's, as I said a week or maybe 2 weeks ago, Galatians is so painfully clear. He is so logical in his order that I don't know how error comes when people read it, but it does come. And as I said, I had a lady married to a Jewish guy that believes that we all have to be circumcised, we can't eat any meats, etc. And yet, Paul could not be clearer, and people really have to mentally twist this book in order to get something that is not in here. So it is written that Abraham had 2 sons, the one by the bondwoman, the other by the free woman. But he who was of the bondwoman, meaning Hagar, was born according to the flesh, meaning that he was born in a normal way. There was no promise. He simply slept with her, and she had a baby. Okay? And he of the free woman through promise. Sarah is the free woman. She is the house master, okay? And a promise had to be made. This is going to happen. It hasn't happened for however many years they were married, but it will happen. So he's saying that it is a promise. All right? Which things are symbolic? Oh, he's so clear in what he's saying here. Don't make an error when I give you this information. For these are 2 covenants. The one from Mount Sinai, guess which that one is before we go on? Right, it's the law, but which one is that? Is it the bondwoman or the free woman? The bondwoman. Okay, you've already got it, and we haven't even read it. It's so obvious what Paul is saying, which gives birth to bondage, which is Hagar. Okay, for Hagar, is Mount Sinai in Arabia. He even says it's in Arabia. Guess what? Paul says in the book of Galatians that where did he go to receive his revelation from the Lord?
Yeah, there.
He said he went to Arabia. And he's using the term, I believe, and it doesn't say specifically he went to Mount Sinai, but I believe that Paul, those 3 years that are missing, there's 3 years that are inserted between 2 verses in the book of Acts, I believe he went to Mount Sinai, and there he received instruction from the Lord himself. I'm assuming that. It doesn't say that in the Bible, but he uses the term Arabia. He went there and uses the term Arabia for where Mount Sinai is. So I do believe that that is where Paul was directed, and he was taken there and shown these mysteries of God. And he thought about them. He did whatever he did for that time. But anyway, that's a little side note. And corresponds, for this is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to Jerusalem. So we have 3 things. We've got the Hagar here corresponds to the law of Moses, and then that corresponds to where the law of Moses is being conducted, in Jerusalem. So he's saying this is symbolic. This is all being represented by what happened with Abraham, okay? And then we're going to go on. It says here, we're in 21. Okay, it says here, but Jerusalem above, which is free, which is the mother of us all. Okay, for it is written, rejoice, O barren woman. What is Jerusalem above? Heaven. That's heaven. That's where Jesus is. That's where our hope is. We're not under the law of Moses. We're in Christ, as it says in Ephesians 2:7. We're seated with Christ in the heavenlies. We are already in, positionally, the heavenly Jerusalem.
The 2 don't mix.
No, they don't.
Oil and water.
They absolutely don't mix. That's right. There's no mixture of these 2. And when you mix them, then you come into all the problems that Paul says. Actually, we'll go back real quickly and I'll read verses 1, 6 through 8. It says, I marvel you are turning away so soon from him who called you in the grace of Christ to a different gospel, which is not another. But there are some who trouble you and want to pervert the gospel of Christ. But if we, or an angel from heaven, which is, by the way, Joseph Smith received this revelation from an angel of heaven. What's his name? Muhammad supposedly got it from the angel Gabriel. If we or any angel from heaven, preach any other gospel to you than that which we have preached to you, let him be accursed. Anathema. He's cursed by God, okay? So, we go back here. It says, for it is written, rejoice, O barren woman. So here we have, what's her name? This is Sarah, S-A-R-A-H. And she corresponds to the heavenly Jerusalem, H-J. All right? Rejoice, O barren woman. It says, you who do not bear, break forth and shout, you who are not in labor, for the desolate has many more children than she who has a husband. He's making a point about the verses we're reading right now. Now, we, brethren, as Isaac was, are children of the promise. So the church, which is the son of the free woman, Isaac, we are represented here in Isaac, the church. We are a son of the promise. The promise didn't come through the law. Right. The promise came through Abraham in Genesis 15:6, when it says, Abraham believed God and God credited it to him for righteousness. And then God gives him the promise of the seed and of all of these different promises. We are, as Isaac was, our children of the promise. But as he who was born according to the flesh, from Hagar, which is Ishmael, then persecuted him. Remember, it just says he was laughing or mocking at Isaac. Okay, he persecuted him, who was born according to the Spirit, who is Isaac, who is the church. Okay, even so it is now. The Jewish people now, the Jews, are laughing at the church at the time of Paul, and they're saying, you need to be circumcised. You need to stop eating pork. Stop eating pork. You got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this. And if you don't do these things, then you can't be saved. And they're persecuting them. That's what the entire book of Galatians is about, is the Judaizers trying to reinsert the law. And I got to tell you what, we use the term Judaizers because they are the ones that were doing it at the time. But the church, and I'm talking about the denominational church, is so full of this. It is so hugely full of it. Seventh-day Adventists, you got to worship on the Sabbath day. You can't eat this, you can't eat that. Yeah. One of my friends gets pamphlets. He and his wife, I've known him for many years, They get pamphlets now from the United Church of God, and they believe you have to observe the Passover. You have to. It's mandated. And all of the other religious feasts that are in Leviticus 26, you have to give tithes, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it's exactly what he's saying here. It is bondage.
Did they used to be part of the world church?
You know, I don't...
Like that, and there was a split.
It could be. You know,
A friend of ours from school that's in that church. And she and I sat down and had lunch when she was down here visiting, and she was telling me, well, you know, we just don't believe that you can just go to the New Testament and totally disregard the Old Testament.
Nobody does. That's why we're studying the Old Testament, but that's an irrelevant argument. It just, isn't it stupid that people say that? We are a New Testament church. This gives us the foundation of the New Testament church. You can't disassociate the two, but you live in one. Yeah. But that's...
Your friends, I'll tell you who it is.
Now, okay, I'll be interested to hear who that is. But I got to tell you what, you know, that is how... This is what he is talking about right here, that those churches that we're talking about, United Church of God and the Seventh-day Adventists and all of these people, they're trying to reintroduce the law. They're failing to understand that grace is grace. Yeah. That's all there is to it. Either you are saved by faith alone or you're not. And, you know, I don't want to get too down on the Catholics because I do it every week, but it's the same thing. They're reinserting what they want to reinsert. They want to add these things in and say, you have to do this and you have to do this. And Paul uses the term, and every time I talk about it, I use the exact same term. It is bondage. People are living in bondage because now they're afraid that if I don't do this thing, then I could lose my salvation. Yeah. But it could not be any clearer in the Bible what he is saying here. But as he who was born according to the flesh then persecuted him who was born according to the Spirit, even so it is now. Meaning the Judaizers, meaning the Church of God, meaning that whoever nowadays. Nevertheless, what does the Scripture say? Cast out the bondwoman and her son, for the son. And remember now, the bondwoman isn't just Isaac. This is a physical application of a spiritual thing. If Hagar is what he just said, the law of Moses, then what do? We cast out the law of Moses. It is done. It is finished at the cross. Tetelestai, paid in full. That is what he is saying, is that you got to stop trying to earn God's favor by observing the law. That doesn't mean that the law didn't serve a purpose, and he explains in the book of Romans what the purpose of the law was, and he also explains it right here in Galatians. He says here that the law was a tutor to lead us to Christ. Where is that? It's well, anyway, it's right in these particular verses, but then it says in 31, so then, brethren, we are not children of the bondwoman of the law. We are children of the free woman, or of Jesus Christ, the grace of God. So where is it? It says here the law.
I think it's in the second chapter.
It might be. That's third chapter. Let's see here. It is a tutor, mediator, blah, blah, blah. What is the purpose of the law then? I know it's in here somewhere. But he says specifically that it is a tutor to lead us to Christ. So let me see if I can find that real quickly here. That is the purpose of the law. And it's also, as it says in the book of Romans, to show us how utterly sinful sin is. I can't fulfill this. There's no way I can fulfill this. The law is showing me that. And what did Jesus say? I did not come to abolish the law. And people will stop right there and say, well, then the law is in effect. No, I came to fulfill it. He fulfilled it, and now we cast out the law. Only after Christ fulfilled it. That is why in the ark, as I said in Sunday school yesterday, were two things. What were they? They were the Ten Commandments, the tablets of the Ten Commandments in the ark. And the ark is a picture of Jesus. They are in him. He fulfilled it. We did not. And we could go into all that study again, but it was kind of fun yesterday. Anyway, but the law, I know it's right in here. You found it? 3:19. What purpose then does the law serve? It was added because of transgressions, till the seed should come, the seed being capital S in here, which is Jesus, right over here, the son of the promise, okay, where was that? Till the seed should come, to whom the promise was made, to your seed, in the singular. Who the promise was made, and it was appointed through angels by the hand of mediator, now mediator. Anyway, there you go. It was a tutor to lead us to Christ. And in the old Roman Empire, the tutor was the guardian of the children. The son had all of the rights of the parents he was going to inherit everything. I want to make sure I don't get this right. Anyway, he is the one who will receive the estate, but he is under a tutor who would take him along until he was old enough to receive his inheritance. And that's what the law was. It was just brought in until the inheritance could be received.